Well, she was away in Singapore. She tells me on business. I don't know if that's true last week. But she is back, our Australian correspondent, Jaqui Lane from Sydney. Jaqui, what were you doing in Singapore?
No, I wasn't. I had a client who came down from Singapore to work with me.
Oh, is that what it was?
I would have loved to have gone up there and worked with my client, but I had too much on. So he arrived in Sydney for 4 or 5 days.
Client, that's a new word. Good on you, Jack. Hey, there. Listen, and talking about innuendo and rumour mongering and stuff like that, which I have just added to, the big news of this week, certainly from a New Zealand perspective, it seems to be agog, is that apparently there's an ex-MP who was a spy for another country. What's the story?
Well, the head of ASIO, which is our spy agency, came out I think a couple of days ago and dropped that clanger into his update, and of course everybody now is trying to work out who it is, and he won't say. But interestingly, our former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, his son, who is a merchant banker type, actually rang up and said, well, actually, it wasn't me or my father, but I can tell you now that I've been approached various times, and when I was approached, I rang ASIO and told them. So nobody knows. Nobody knows, and there's a wonderful conjecture going on everywhere.
It's quite a serious allegation and accusation that a member of Parliament was turned by, a spy agency from another country and started doing their will. Is that the allegation? Have I got that right?
Not quite, and it's actually not clear. The ASIO guy was very specific in his words, and I don't have it up in front of me now, but it was that they had been contacted, and it's not clear whether they were actually turned or whether they were in the process of being turned. It's all really rather vague.
Right.
But
why did he? Okay. Why? I mean, ASIO is what it's the sort of equivalent of the SIS. Is that right? Like
Britain's MI5, or it's our secret intelligence agency.
You're right. Okay. And it's a lot more important than our SIS or EIB here, I would imagine, given its linkage to Western intelligence. But why then, if you're not prepared to name that person, would you even raise the issue? Is it suggesting that even within the domains of Parliament, other overseas agencies are able to spy? What was the point of him raising it in the first place?
Look, I think the point of raising it is that Australians have this great capacity for exceptionalism across a number of areas, and I think the ASIO boss really just wants to let Australians know that if you don't think this sort of stuff is happening here, it is definitely happening. And, we're part of the Five Eyes Security Pact. A number of our major infrastructure assets are owned by foreign countries. If anyone thinks that we are not being infiltrated, they're living under a rock, quite frankly. And I think a lot of Australians just don't think it could happen here. And, of course, it's happening.
Allegations, very similar allegations to yours, have been made of New Zealand MPs as well. One particular list MP for the National Party, for example, was identified as having worked for Chinese intelligence agency before settling in this country and then become a member of Parliament. Are we, do you think, seen by Australians when it comes to defence as intelligence as the weak backdoor? Do you think they think about New Zealand much at all? I'm not sure that they do. I think they're very focused on what's going on here. And particularly, I think more recently, Michael, in relation to
China's activities in the South Pacific, for both of our countries. We've kind of let all that go for, way too long, in my opinion. And if, Australia and New Zealand thought that we could just kind of not be part of what the geopolitics of the world is, I think there's now certainly a realisation here that, we're definitely in it, and we have to take proactive steps, both in terms of the South Pacific and the way we assess threats and the way we think that might happen. I mean, there was a big furor several years ago that the new building for ASIO in Canberra was going to be using, Huawei phone and technology, until someone said, well, hang on a minute. That's Chinese technology. Why are we putting that into our spy agency? So that actually didn't go ahead, but it was kind of that no one previously had really thought that was going to be an issue, and it's a huge issue.
Australia's got a slightly schizophrenic attitude towards China, though, hasn't it? Because it's seen itself over the last, probably most of the century, as being the United States deputy, if you like, in Southeast Asia and in Asia in general. It regards China, and has spoken about it on numerous occasions, as being a reason why it needs to amp up its military in the Pacific and in Asia, and its infrastructure, etc. And yet it is such a huge trading partner of Australia as well. We've got the same problem here, Jack. I think over 30% of our exports go to China. They are our largest export market, and they are our largest trading partner. Over here, I think we live in sliding doors. So we've got a military and an intelligence view, and we've got a trade view, and they don't seem ever to meet in New Zealand. What's it like in Australia? Do they meet a bit more?
I think Australia's had a real, the leadership has had a real difficulty in managing exactly that. I mean, Australia's economy really, its success has really been pretty much underpinned by the China trade. So our quality of life and so much of what Australians take for granted. Under the previous government, it was a very adversarial relationship. The current government, Penny Wong, has worked extraordinarily hard to de-escalate the rhetoric around, the defence and security issues. I think really it's a very difficult path to walk. And I think, great credit to the current government. They seem to be doing a pretty good job of it, and Penny Wong particularly has, I think, done an outstanding job in a very difficult situation.
Okay. That said, there is a by-election coming which is going to test the strength or otherwise of your government. It's the Dunkley by-election. Is that right?
Yes, correct. Well done.
Now, where is Dunkley?
I think it's in Victoria.
Oh, okay. All right. So you've got the state, but okay.
Yeah.
It's held by what? The local, who? Okay, first of all, by-elections are always important because they sort of test a sort of barometer of the mood of the country. I guess not quite so much in Australia because it's so regional, your politics. But Victoria, take me through it. It's run by a Labor Party. It's been run by the Labor Party for a long time. Why are they having a by-election? Who's expected to win?
Okay, so they're having a by-election because the lady who held the seat, Peter Murphy, died earlier on this year from brain cancer, cancer. And so they had to have a by-election. She was very popular, and she got elected on a 6.3% margin. So it was, so it's very tragic in a way that they've had to have this. The Labor candidate is a female called Jodi Balea. I don't particularly know much about her. I guess the Labor Party has some concerns because the previous election, many think, was really a protest vote against Scott Morrison. So, of course, he's now not there. So while 6.3% may seem to be a good margin, there is some concern, I think, on the Labor side that it might not be as strong as that now that protest vote's not going to be there. So that's kind of where that's sitting. I don't know much about the Liberal candidate. But, you know, I think they're a local, so it is going to be an interesting bellwether. You know, cost of living is still excruciating here. I was listening to your previous conversation with Erica, I think. I mean, talk about house prices and rental prices and lack of housing affordability and housing stock. It's probably like New Zealand on steroids here. You know, there's no housing and there's great promises of building it, but it's not happening because of supply chain issues and a whole range of things. So cost of living is really biting here now for the Labor Party, and long on talk and not a lot of action. They reversed this promise on stage 3 tax cuts couple of months or so ago, and I called that the Dunkley by-election reversal. Not sure it's quite true, but the cost of living issue here is massive.